Welcome to At Your Library. I'm your host, Cathleen Clifford. Joining me today, which I am very excited about, is our town historian, Jim Streeter, who's going to talk about his new book. Welcome to At Your Library.
Well, it's nice to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. I am so glad you wrote another book so that we could have you on our show. And for those who do not know you, and if they don't, they must be new to our area, please tell us, how long have you been the historian here in Groton?
Well, actually, I was appointed by the town council in 2010. The former historian, Carol Kimball, who was a sweetheart and she was my mentor, she got up in age and she wanted to step down, and I was just so honored that she recommended that I take her place as the historian. So actually it's been since 2010.
That's fantastic. How did you grew up in Groton your whole life?
I did.
When did you find your passion for the history of Groton?
Well, actually, growing up, I really didn't care about history. You know, I was a kid and I'm growing up, but I got out of the Army and I went on to the police department. And while I was on the police department, I was a young guy, and I'm working with older people that grew up in the community, and they started talking about the community where we patrolled, where we worked, and it intrigued me that was there. So they actually started probably in the mid '60s when I went on the police department, and then it grew from there.
That is so wonderful. So when did you actually start writing about the history?
On and off. I would write, little pieces here and there. But in 2007, the Groton Times newspaper started, and I was doing a very short piece for them. Part of my collection, again, as the historian, after the -- I started collecting. And anything I could put my hands on that related to Groton, I acquired if I could.
Okay.
Part of it was right now, I'll give you an example. Right now on my computer, I have in excess over 35,000 photographs of Groton, older photographs of Groton. Wow. And most of them are one of a kind. So what I was doing is, if we would have a specific location in Groton, I would find a picture of it.
Okay.
If there was a thread mill there, and I would put the picture and then just give a two or three line description of what we were looking at. Part of history, learning the history, and they published it. And that I did, I believe, until about 2010, so 2007 to 2010.
Okay.
Then they asked me to expand upon it. So I did, and the articles would include a photograph, but now I would give a further description about what transpired, what the photograph was all about, and that would be anywhere from 400 to 600 words. And I did that for about 5 years.
Did you do it every week?
It was a weekly activity, and it was taxing on time because
I'm sure.
I was working full time at the time and things of that nature. So after 2010, I said, I need a hiatus from this.
Okay.
So I didn't write anything really relating to that. Certainly behind the scenes, I was doing presentations and things relating to history, but nothing officially writing for a media outlet or anything like that. Then they called me. They called me again and said, Jim, would you consider writing again? And I said yes, under two conditions. One, a monthly article rather than weekly because of the taxing of the time.
Right.
And two, I need more words. I have to make this a full article because periodically they say, Jim, you forgot to put this in there. I said, I didn't forget to put it in there. The restriction of words prohibited me from doing that. So I started again in 2017 and then continued until the Times newspaper they stopped including articles, a lot of the articles, because there were a lot of people that wrote for the Times about their particular areas.
So is that when you started writing books?
No. The books go way back.
Okay.
I believe the first one was in 2002 or 2003, co-authored three what they call Arcadia books.
Yes.
And these are photographed books, right? With Carol Kimball.
Yes.
Well, two of them were with Carol Kimball and Marilyn Comrie.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I've probably read all three of them.
Yes.
Yes.
And then there was another Arcadia book. A former captain on the city fire department came and said, "Jim, why don't we write a book on the city fire department?"
Okay.
Well, anybody that knows Groton knows that our emergency services is voluminous. So I said, let's do one better. Let's write a book, an Arcadia book, on all 22 emergency services that we have in Groton and Mystic.
And that's in one book?
It's in one book. Again, they're just photographs
Oh,
with
okay.
a description of the
Right.
photographs. Those are Arcadia books. And then there was a time that I was on the board for the Fitch Alumni Association from Fitch High School, and they wanted a fundraiser. They said, "Geez, could you give a presentation on the Fitch High School and the history?" And I said, "Probably, sure."
Okay.
And I said, "For interest, we'll make it a fundraiser. We'll have like a wine and cheese, and I'll put a little booklet together, maybe, 8-10 pages, and we'll have that as a handout."
Oh,
all right,
perfect.
for attending. So now I start reaching the high school, and although I
That you-
graduated,
I
from
was gonna
there,
say that you went to.
I did. I graduated. I didn't know anything about it. I knew a little because again, my interest in the history. So I started researching, and I couldn't believe the material that was available that was obscure. It was buried underneath counters at the former Fitch Middle School, at the high school in the back room on shelves and boxes, people's houses and things like this. So I started gathering it and doing the research and trying to make it an interesting story. I got to page 115, and I said, "This is not a little booklet to hand out."
I was gonna
and a wine and
say,
cheese. So,
right.
So we published that.
Okay.
And then, it's similar to this book, when I was writing the shorter articles, I believe there were a total of 113 articles.
Wow.
And I put those into a book and called it Historical Bits and Pieces of Groton. All right, so I did that one. And then I found more interest as a veteran myself. I was at church one day with my wife, and I looked over underneath the stained glass window, and I saw a bronze plaque. And I said, "What is this plaque?" And my wife said, "I don't know." So after the service, we went over and looked, and it was a memorial. It was a dedication to the members of the church that fought in World War II. And I said,
Oh.
"This is a memorial, but it's obscure. I mean, only the members of the church or those who attended the church would have seen that."
Right.
So I said, "I wonder how many others there are." And I went down that rabbit hole.
How many are there?
Well, 2 years later, I published a book, a directory of Groton's Veteran War memorials, and it was called Remembering Our Veterans.
Okay.
All right, there's well over 100 veteran memorials, and
Just here in Groton.
just here in Groton.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Wow. I bet people really appreciated that, especially people that are veterans themselves.
Well, interesting. Just recently, the Groton Town Council, one of the council members brought up, "Geez, we should recognize our veterans." And I said to myself, "I believe we have." Right? So I provided each of those a complimentary copy of the book, and they were amazed that we had all of these plaques and memorials and things of that nature throughout the community.
Fantastic. Well, you have a new book that just came out, and we're going to take a short break right now. But when we come back, we're going to talk all about it.
Okay.
Stay with us. We'll be back.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly.
Lights out. Good night.
And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to At Your Library. Today, Jim Streeter is here, and we are going to talk about his new book that has recently been published, History Revisited, Groton, Connecticut, Notable Tales, Stories, and Facts. And Jim, you will be here on Thursday, December 5th to sign the book, correct?
I will, thank you.
Excellent. So what is this book about, and why did you publish it?
Well, the title kind of speaks for itself, but as we previously discussed, the last stretch of writing the articles were full-length articles, and they were published in the Groton Times. So, strangely, everyone didn't receive the Groton Times. It's a subsidiary of the New London Day newspaper.
Yes.
However, some people received it as an insert. Mm-hmm. Some people received it in the newspaper, but not everyone had access to it.
Oh,
and so I'd be out talking about something. I said, "Oh yeah, I wrote an article on that," and they said, "I never saw that."
Oh.
So I said, people keep asking these questions. Why don't I take a compilation of all the articles, put them together, put them in a book, and make them available so everybody access to it? My philosophy, I have a personal philosophy.
Okay.
Groton's history doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to everyone, and we should share it.
Of course,
So,
especially.
So I felt we'd do that.
Nice. Very exciting. And so it's out now.
It is.
And without giving away too much that's in the book, can you relay one or two of the articles? Because I was reading it last night, and so it's just so engrossing.
Well, one of the articles, and when I wrote it, it was a 3-part series. There was so much information there. Mm-hmm. When you start researching these articles, the information is voluminous.
Okay.
And now you have to reduce it. And I guess they say it makes you a better writer because you're taking a lot of information and reducing it to a certain amount of words. So this one particular subject involved a suspected murder that transpired at a hotel, a very luxurious hotel in Groton.
Okay.
It was a predecessor to the Griswold Hotel, which a lot of people that are listening that are my age or a little bit younger will remember it. Okay. And this was a predecessor of that hotel. It was called the Edgecombe House. And what it concerned was there was a very prominent person from Norwich. He and his wife would come down to spend the summer here in Groton because you're close to the water and the ocean and the activities of fishing and things of this nature. So he'd come down, and he still had a practice, so he'd come back and forth. And he came back one evening and had a glass of wine with his wife. He brought some wine with him.
Okay.
And the story is that the wine contained some arsenic.
Really?
And she subsequently died.
Oh, she died.
She died.
Oh, interesting. And they believed it was murder?
Well, I'd like to tell you everything about it, but then people wouldn't buy my book.
Okay. So I'm going to have to look that up as soon as this interview.
You will have to. And that's what happened when I was writing the article. Every week. Well, what happened? I said, you have to wait till next week.
So you did it as a 3-part?
Yes, a 3-part.
But was it weekly at that point, or
No, it was monthly. I beg your pardon.
Okay.
It was monthly. So they'd have to wait a month.
Oh my gosh.
And they would be very frustrated, but I kind of
Yes.
enjoyed that.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so awesome.
And in these articles, by the way, as a town historian, I felt a responsibility. As a historian, I represent all the districts of Groton. You know, Groton, Mystic, Noank, Paquonic Bridge, Pleasant Valley, West Mystic, everybody, Noank. So what I would try to do is find a subject relating to the various districts. So the articles run the gamut
They cover
of all
every
the districts.
part.
Yep.
I know. I see here that some of the articles about Paquonic Bridge, oysters growing on trees?
Yes, and this is interesting. A lot of people don't realize it. Right now, Groton has a tremendous clamming
Yes.
beds in the area.
Yes.
And a lot of people clam.
Right.
Well, way back when, oysters were the big thing.
Oh, okay.
And we had a voluminous number of beds that were rented and owned by people, and the manufacturing, or not manufacturing, but the sale of them. They were selling for $5 a bushel or a barrel at the time. Well, you walk to an oyster bar now and see how much you get for,
Right.
for $5.
Exactly.
So they were, producing them, and then they came up. The bottom of the Paquonic River became so muddy that somebody found that, geez, all these oysters are growing on these tree limbs that have fallen in the water. So they come up and said there must be something to this.
Okay.
So he had many limbs cut, placed in the river, and sure in heck, they started accumulating in masses.
Wow.
So that became a practice throughout the country. All right, so
So
we
it
can
started
lead that back
right
to our
here
right
in
here
Groton.
in downtown Groton. at
Oh
the
my
Paquonic
gosh.
Bridge. Yep.
That is so cool. And also, we talk about like the really fancy restaurants in Noank, and a lot of famous people have come through here. Our little town of Noank, our little borough.
I remember the restaurant. It was called Skipper's Dock, and it was in Noank.
In Noank,
Small
okay.
town, fishing town, Noank, but it was a very, very luxurious restaurant, and I was fortunate. The owner's daughter, who worked there, I had the great opportunity to interview her several times, and she gave me the inside information on everything, and she mentioned the people that she served that went there, to include the Rockefellers, very rich people from New York,
Right here in a little.
right here in
little
downtown
area.
Groton again.
Right.
John Wayne,
The actor.
the famous actor,
Ooh,
the
that's
gunslinger.
exciting, yes.
Lana Turner, very beautiful actress.
Yes.
And then she told the story about Albert Einstein.
No.
And
Really?
The
Here?
interesting thing was he would eat and then leave without paying.
Oh.
And when approached, well, I'll take care of it later. Now, he never did take care of it, but so we had Albert Einstein as one of the restaurant
Albert
patrons.
Einstein, who never paid a bill.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. He was just too busy thinking about other things to worry about
Well,
it, right?
knowing Albert Einstein, I'm sure he had more than a steak dinner on his mind. Right? But it was a great restaurant. My wife and I ate there a couple of times when it was still operating, and it just went defunct after a while.
Yeah, I know. It's so sad when things like that
Yep.
happen, and
Yep.
and that's why I think it's so important for people. Like, I am not from Groton. I'm a transient. I've been here since 1994, and I'm always fascinated to learn about the places I live, and I consider Groton to be my home now. And but I don't know the rich history, and so that's why working here at the library and having access to all these books is so important. And we so appreciate you for that, because if you don't share the history, like you said, it just stops, and we don't need that to happen.
The other interesting thing about documenting these, as a historian, can I talk about history from the 1600s? Absolutely.
Okay.
But most of the articles relate from the late 1800s to about 1970.
Okay.
That's kind of modern history, but 100 years from now, it's going to be hard history.
Exactly.
And if you don't document it, it's gone.
Exactly.
It's
We're
gone.
so appreciative. So, all right. So we talked about the book, and you're going to be here Thursday, December 5th at 6 o'clock to sign it, and people can purchase it that night.
That's correct.
What if they can't wait till December and they want to purchase it now? How can they get it?
They can. I have a few locations. My sister has a fish and tackle store on Thames Street, Ken's Tackle Shop.
Yes.
She has some available there.
Okay, great.
Buford's Restaurant on Paquonic Road. I have breakfast there, so they're available there. They're also available on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
All right. If you
So if you don't want to leave your house and you just want to have it come
or you can contact me, and you can get a hold of me through the library.
through the library. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on at your library. We could talk for hours, but we want people to come in and buy the book and have it signed when you're here. This has been a real honor for us to have you, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
This has been At Your Library. Thanks for checking in.